Alan, I think that these procedures sound great, and you know, I thank everybody for their involvement in generating them. But they seem mainly geared at organizations. I know there's mention of individuals several times here. What do we have to say to the community about individual use of certain facilities? And I don't think we have a formal policy on that. If we do, at least I haven't seen it. But you know, what's our message to the community in terms of an individual using a baseball diamond if it's not being used or locked, or using a tennis court, or using, you know, any number of things? And I guess I'm primarily addressing outdoor.
Walk-on kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Or how about a wedding in the Commons?
Well, I mean, I'd say
Well,
you could stretch it.
that's different,
You could
that's
stretch it to that. Have we had a
something
request
reserved.
for a wedding in the Commons?
But I think,
No,
Dick,
you
you're
might
meaning,
not.
like, could somebody just
Yeah.
walk up and start throwing a ball around on?
Yeah, what is the, you know, are we asking people to seek approval? Are we saying if it's open, feel free to use it? I'm asking.
Well, I could say, well, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, some of that's addressed in the part that I said was pretty much boilerplate, because there are certificates of insurance to be provided. You know, for a wedding, there's no alcohol to be brought on school grounds, things like that. Walk on, you know, baseball games and somebody walking onto an open tennis court, that's not prohibited by this. It's the scheduled use of those items in the reservation of those type of things. The outdoor facilities, obviously somebody wouldn't walk in and just start using the gymnasium, but in the outdoor facilities, they're available. And that's pretty hard to police unless you start, you know, putting fences
Yeah,
and
but we're
gates
getting
up.
better at it. Generally,
Well, I'm curious about the message there. We say we're getting better at it. Does that mean we don't want people? I mean, what's the message that we're trying to get
We don't want
across?
people using facilities that have been booked to another organization. But if they're not being used, and they're not being abused, then I would think we do welcome the community to use baseball fields or tennis courts or soccer fields.
Okay.
So if they see them, the outdoor facilities, if they can see that they are not being used, they're able to use them?
I'm wondering if Dick wants me to say a certain thing.
No, I'm
Sorry.
asking, I'm asking,
For-
do we have a
sorry.
policy? Do we have what is the message to the community regarding use of?
Generally speaking, in the
Facilities.
past, it was more open, less monitored than it is today. And probably we're going to continue to get better at monitoring the use of our facilities. We do, generally, when they are not being used by a formal group, you know, we have, for example, we have boys that come out on the girls' softball field. They love to play home run derby. Well, that's really not a problem, except that if it's an hour before a game where it's been lined, and so the lines get. So we now have 24/7, almost 24/7 security out here, and we're starting to talk to anyone who is not officially sanctioned out here. You know, kind of what is your purpose? Who are you here for? One of the questions. So we're getting better at monitoring that than we have been in the past. But not with the intent really to just throw people off, generally speaking. Some exception to that is we've talked with Tim about how do we monitor for individual tennis pros that come out there on the courts and just start doing private lessons on their own, because we shouldn't be doing that. So we need to get better at that than we have been in the past. So slowly we're getting better at the miscellaneous kinds of activity that are on outdoor spaces. Really doesn't happen on indoor. That requires approval when anything on the inside of our buildings. So we're getting better at monitoring just random use of our fields. Jay, you may be able to add something to that.
We've always had a kind of an open door policy towards that. If it gets out of hand, though, we have to take action. I think what we are doing a better job on knowing what's happening and whether or not that's something appropriate or not. The judgment each time.
And when Dr. Griffith says monitoring, I'm assuming he's not meaning with the purpose of prohibiting it, but rather just to understand what that particular use is. And say kids do come to use a field and it's already been lined, they just need to be told, sorry, not right now. Another time it might be fine.
Well, yeah, and I appreciate your elaboration there, from
Yeah.
policing to monitoring, and I think to further explanation is, I hope, helpful to the public as a whole in understanding, because clearly there are inappropriate uses
Right.
and liability issues and all kinds of things that, you know, the district has to be concerned about, so thanks.
I have to say I was pleased with the original, the wording of the original board policy, which was adopted in March of 2000 and held up very nicely to today. That the facilities have been constructed and are maintained primarily for the purpose of educating the students of the district. And yet it does go on that the board believes it is in the public interest to make some of the facilities available to non-school organizations for their activities. So it's got a welcoming note to it as well.
Alan, where would an arrangement, if the rec department came to us and said they wanted to use one of the facilities, do they fall into class 3?
That was the government agency.
Yeah, I think it's a class 2, is the way I read it.
I think it's class 3 since they charge.
But governmental organization.
I think that's the other school districts, police and fire.
It'd be class 3.
Yeah,
Yeah, I believe so. And
Because if they're charging fees themselves,
right.
we would be charging fees that wouldn't be class 1 or 2.
Correct.
And Alan, I think it might be worth noting the regulation 17 in the boilerplate that does give you some discretion.
Right, thank you. And that came
Where-
from the Operations Committee discussion. The district will determine the user's rental category based on the status of the organization, association, or individual that accepts responsibility for satisfying this procedure's requirements. If the user receives payment for an activity, event, or program held at a district facility, the district will also consider the status of any additional organization, association, or individual receiving payments from the activity, event, or program when determining the user's rental category. And that actually did evolve from, I think, our last Operations Committee meeting in that discussion. What if an organization comes in and then they're charging and making money doing so? So we do have some leeway in that.
Let's do an example. Currently, the City of Lake Forest Rec Department uses East Campus Field for youth football on Sunday. Would we, I don't believe we've charged them use in the past, a use fee. Would we do that in the future?
If we haven't in the past, I would probably say no, because past practice there. Now, what we did charge them for, I believe, this year was the striping of the fields. Because by moving our program out here, as an example, in the past, we would stripe the field for our own use. By moving out here, we had no reason to stripe the field. We went ahead and did it to accommodate them, but there was a cost involved. We did pass that cost on. But we didn't really, except for that personnel cost of striping the field, we wouldn't normally pick that up. And the association with the rec department has really been trying to only pass on or absorb costs that are incurred by the respective organization. So really, the one with the experience doing this is Tim, because he's done it over a period of years. It gets, as you can see, this gets very difficult when you have a wide spectrum of possible users out there and you're trying to come up with parameters that encompass all of that. So,
Yeah, I think number 17 was intended to address some of the complicated relationships between organizations
Where you have-
that go on, just to make sure that we're being fair and considering the actual nature of the event.
Well, and as I understand it, class 2 and 3 can charge to recover their costs of operations, as AYSO does. They're not for profit, but they have to pay their referees, and so it looks to me like classes 2 and 3 may charge a fee, but it's a fee to recover their costs of operation, whereas when you go to class 4 and 5, they're making money that goes beyond their cost of.
Yeah, it's a good distinction.
And it's an admission fee rather than a participation fee.
Right.
Yeah, you know, on the class 4, all you do is strike the word spectator.